Hello, my name is Riley Everett, and this is my 5-minute presentation on Allan Lockheed. So before Allan got into aviation, he was a car mechanic, he was an engineer, and then of course he eventually became a pilot. But this was all despite him not even graduating from high school. In 1910, he was hired by two pilots as their mechanic to work on a Curtiss pusher biplane. The two pilots were unable to get the plane off the ground, and they were about to sell it. And Allan stepped in and said, "Let me try," and he got it off on his second try. This really sprung his love for aviation, and he went on to convince his brother Malcolm to create their own aircraft. Um, so they created the Lockheed Aircraft Manufacturing Company in 1912, and they created and operated their aircraft for a sightseeing business in Santa Barbara. But the company ended up going into liquidation because of all the excess World War I planes coming into the market, and it really deflated the aviation market. And so there was no point in making any planes anymore, and they just lost a lot of money. Uh, Allan would go on to a real estate business, and Malcolm would go on to make the hydraulic brake, making a name for himself. But it wasn't a complete failure because they made the Model G airplane in the top left picture, which was one of the first seaplanes, not the very first one, but it was very rare to see a seaplane at the time. The Model F1, which is the one in the bottom picture, and that was a twin engine aircraft that they would use for the sightseeing business. And then the S1 Sport in the top right, which was their last produced airplane. Allan Lockheed would eventually make the company once again with Jack Northrop, the now chief engineer, and Fred Keeler, who is now the president. Allan was the vice president. And they formed the Vega model based on the S1 Sport of the last company and the Orion model. Both of these models would boom their company. They produced over 80 aircraft in 2 years. At one point, they were producing 5 aircraft a week. By the end of 1928, their reported sales were over more than $1 million. Here is some famous aviators with Amelia Earhart is standing in front of a Vega model that she used to fly solo from Hawaii to the U.S. mainland. And then Charles Lindbergh used a Lockheed Sirius for his expeditions. And then Wiley Post, the man to first fly solo around the world, is standing in front of his Vega, and that Vega is actually in the Smithsonian today. So the company began to produce more models, but the Great Depression hit. And but before the Great Depression hit, Detroit Aircraft Corporation partnered with Lockheed because Keeler saw a time for a big money grab. He sold 87% of Lockheed's assets to Detroit Aircraft. And Allan Lockheed strongly advised not to, strongly disagreed with it. And so this made him leave his own company. The company would then, when the Great Depression hit, the Detroit Aircraft Corporation would go into bankruptcy, and Robert Gross ended up buying out the company. This led Lockheed into World War II and allowed them to make deals with governments, with the government and other allied powers to make military aircraft that would serve huge purpose in World War II and eventually make Lockheed Martin into the company they are today, still producing aircraft for the US government and selling their planes overseas. And these are my sources. Thank you for watching.